Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. This is the League of Women Voters' first public meeting of the year via Zoom. And tonight's topic is vote safely and securely. And the League of Women Voters is an organization that's worked for 100 years to defend democracy and empower voters. And we think one of the most important things, of course, is to get out the vote and to vote. And so the program tonight is designed to answer probably the two most burning questions you have. Can I vote safely? And will my vote be counted? I promise at the end of this meeting, you will have the answers to both of those questions. So I would like to introduce our first speaker for the evening. Is Lisa Hayes is our first speaker. Lisa worked for the Guadalupe County as an assistant elections coordinator from 1998 to 2006. Then she left to work for DeBolt for 10 years, providing election support to various states and county governments. She returned in 2015 as the Guadalupe County Elections Administrator, a post she has held until now. Not sure if she's still happy to have that post at this exact moment or not, but we're happy that she's there. Lisa.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you all having me here tonight. I know everybody's got a lot going on, and I know we've got a lot going on, Cynthia and I, trying to keep up with the times, but I think it's important to talk about these questions that you raised in your introduction. So thank you so much for giving me this chance. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is voter safety at the polls. And of course, in this instance, we're talking about health and safety, not, any other kinds of issues right now. We're worried about COVID-19 and how our voters can vote and feel like their health and well-being is being cared for. So with this election, we're going to do the same things we did in the July primary runoff. We have social distancing of the machines and the people. We're keeping 6 feet between each of our voting machines. Our check-in stations are 6 feet apart. We'll have 6-foot lines marked on the pavement so that everyone understands we're distancing from each other. And that's really important. I think it helps everyone feel a little bit better about the whole situation. One of the things we really stressed in the last election was contactless voting. So when the voter comes to the counter to check in, the poll worker is not touching their photo ID. They are giving them a stylus. So one of the things we've done with our disposable stylus for the voting machines is actually a Q-tip. We've discovered that a Q-tip works perfectly on our ballot marking device that we use for voting. So the voters are issued a Q-tip, they can vote on the machine, they get their ballot back, they walk over to the scanner, deposit it. They've never touched anything other than the door handle to come in, which we sanitize regularly. We've got hand sanitizer handy, no pun intended, and the poll workers will be wearing masks. So we're doing everything we can to keep as little contact as possible. And we've had a lot of really good feedback from our voters in July. They felt very safe and secure. In fact, there were some voters who said they weren't planning on voting at all, but they had friends who came to vote, and they were so pleased with the results and feeling so safe that they encouraged their friends to come vote as well. So that's what we're going to do. It's important to us because we want the voters and the poll workers to feel safe. Typically our poll workers are more of our at-risk population, and we don't want them to feel like they're putting themselves in jeopardy by coming out to work. And we don't want our voters to feel like they're being jeopardized by coming out to vote. For those who don't want to come into the polls but want to vote in person, we have curbside voting. And curbside voting, as you probably know, is where we take a voting machine out to the car. And so those voters unable to enter the polls can vote in privacy, they can vote in person, but they get to vote in person, and they don't have to rely on a mail ballot if they prefer not to do that. So that's another thing that we're doing to keep our voters feeling safe. So other than that, of course, we always have mail ballots. Any voters over 65, disabled, or out of the county for election day are free to request mail ballots. And that's that's another good option. I know there's a lot of concern right now with returning mail ballots and getting them back to the office in time. So since the governor expanded early voting, we are allowed now to have the voters hand deliver their ballots to the main early voting location, or the main office. So if a voter votes their mail ballot, but they don't want to entrust it to the Postal Service, they are free to hand deliver it to our office. And they can only deliver their own ballot, and they have to have a photo ID. But it will give them, I think, a certain amount of peace of mind to know that that ballot has been received in our office. So that's a great option for the voters who are really uncomfortable with mailing their ballot back. And we've had a lot of mail ballot applications. We're over almost 6,000 right now, and had to redo some work recently. I think Cynthia's probably on the same page with me. That's caused us a little bit of a hiccup, but we had to add 2 candidates to the ballot. We found out yesterday. We had to add 2 Green Party candidates. So we're having to redo our ballot, our testing. Anything we have done up till now has to be redone. And then we have to mail overseas and military ballots by Saturday. So it's been a little bit of a craziness there, but that's what we do. And I think the other thing you talked about was voters being concerned that their votes would be counted. That's never really been an issue that we've had. We have the equipment available for votes to be counted and tabulated accurately, just as always. The larger number than usual of mail ballots won't impact that at all. We have plans A, B, and C in mind in case we have any difficulties, but we're not really concerned about that. We're still planning for a heavy turnout at the polls, despite the higher mail ballot business, because some voters are still going to decide, even though they've requested a mail ballot, that they'd rather vote in person. And that is an option. If we have not received their mail ballot, they can cancel. They can fill out a application to cancel a mail ballot at the polls and vote in person. I'll be very honest with you. I would prefer they didn't do that, because we put a lot of work into sending out mail ballots, but that some voters decide at the last minute that they can vote in person. So that's something we want them to feel comfortable doing. I don't want to take up too much time, but we have 9 early voting locations and 35 election day locations for our voters. So we're trying to make it as convenient as possible. You know, early voting is an extra week because of the governor's proclamation. So the voters have plenty of time to come out and utilize early voting if that's their choice. We have extended hours, and we really encourage the voters who are going to vote in person to vote early. Yeah, you know, when voters tend to wait till the last day, which is election day, for some reason they also wait till 5 till 7. And then we have long lines and angry voters. And so we just want everyone to take advantage of the long hours and come out and vote.
Thank you, Lisa. I should have said this at the beginning, but if you have questions for Lisa or any of our panelists, please type them into chat, and Ada will be asking the questions. So even though I didn't tell you that in advance, still type in your questions and we'll come back. Lisa will have another chance to.
Well, actually, I do have a question for Lisa.
Go ahead.
Since voters can no longer vote a straight party ticket by automatically choosing their party of choice, what materials or list of candidates are voters allowed to bring in and use while voting at the booth machine? Will the materials first be reviewed or checked by the voting team before allowing the individual access to the vote?
So voters are welcome to bring a voting guide into the polls with them. There's not a strict definition of what that means, as long as it's not campaign material. Frequently, we have voters that bring in sample ballots that they've already marked. And we encourage our voters to go to our website or to stop in our office and get a sample ballot ahead of time to review it, because you're right, without straight party voting being available, it is going to take longer for voters to vote. And for those that are concerned for their safety, less time spent in the polls is probably better as well. We have an extensive ballot this time between the federal, state, and local, and we have 16 entities contracting with us to do their elections, so we have a lot on the ballot, and so voters really should come in prepared if at all possible. But we recommend a sample ballot. It's a great starting place, And then they can go from there to look for additional information if that doesn't satisfy their needs.
Ada, any other questions?
I have another one. Will the early voting votes be counted during early voting or the day of the election?
We're legally not allowed to start tabulating early voting until early voting has ended. So historically, what we've done in our office is we begin tabulating early voting. We begin tabulating mail ballots after the end of early voting. The early voting equipment, we don't do anything with until election day. So that's when we will close the polls on those machines and tabulate. But we don't do any of that ahead of time. The election code does not allow for that.
But did I hear you say that you can start counting the mail-in ballots after early voting?
You can start scanning them. Yes, we don't tabulate. We don't run any reports showing any totals. That's not allowed. We don't want to do any of that we can't do that until the polls are open. But we can start, the ballot board comes in and checks signatures and things of that nature, and we can start scanning those ballots. We cannot tabulate until election day.
Okay. Ada,
That's my list.
thank you. Okay, so remember, if you have any questions, please type them into chat, and Ada is watching that.
And remind participants, some people have joined, ask them to turn off their video.
I turned it off for them. Yes.
I'm
It's because you're late. I promise you, I turned off Daphne's. Facebook Live is 20 seconds later. There's a delay between Facebook Live and Zoom. So Jerry's trying to do the Facebook Live, so I'm not sure.
Santa, I did get one more question, and it'll be for both Cynthia and Lisa. Are there many amendments on the ballot for Guadalupe?
From a federal and state perspective, there are no constitutional amendments on the ballot. The only propositions we have are at the local level. Some of our cities and schools and water districts have propositions, but that's all.
Thank you.
I think constitutional amendments are usually after the legislature has met in the January of 2021, so it'll be after that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now the second also busiest woman in the area is Cynthia Jacqua. She has worked for Comal County for the last 24 years, starting in the county clerk's office. She's helped out during elections and was promoted to election coordinator for Comal in 2014. We're happy to have Cynthia.
Thank you. A lot of what Lisa said we are doing, but in some instances, we're going a little bit further for the safety of our voters and our workers. We will also have social distancing. The machines will be set 6 feet apart, which means in some instances we won't have as many machines. And we will practice as much as we can contactless. So the voter will hold their own card, put it on the poll pad, sign the poll pad either with the finger card or if they have their own stylus, whatever. We have a Q-tip we have DREs, which are touchscreen, which are different than Guadalupe County. So we will, also you can use it's a Q-tip, and I love them because it's so nice to you can push hard, because a lot of us don't have any strength, and it's so nice that it's easy to select your selections with the Q-tip. We may keep those even, hopefully, when this all goes away. But after each voter votes, we will clean the poll pad with alcohol wipes. After they vote at the machine, we will also clean the screen and around it with alcohol wipes and disinfectants. We will wipe off our sneeze guards that we have at the controller and at the poll pad. And try as much as we can to be contactless for our safety. We will require all of our workers to wear masks or face shields while working to protect everyone. It doesn't matter. We want to protect our voters and we want to protect our workers. So, and we also, it is a state law that we have curbside voting, which we encourage anyone that, there's a lot of people out there that love to vote in person, but they can't get around as well as they used to. We'll be glad they can come curbside vote, and whoever brings them can curbside vote. Also, there is a mobility law that if you are in line and you may not feel well, or you're standing there and you thought you could stand in line, but you can't, you can ask to go to the front of the line and with whoever's with you. So that might help some of the voters vote, because we do anticipate long lines. As of yesterday, we had 8,300 applications for ballot by mail. We're beating Guadalupe County. Also, we have 112,055, this was as of yesterday, 112,055 registered voters for Comal County also. So we anticipate a large crowd. We have 7 early voting locations and 24 polling locations. And as you know, in Comal County, we are a vote center county. So wherever you go and you see a vote sign, you can stop in and vote, which makes it, I think, great. Let's see. Nearly everything Lisa said, we're doing the same thing, because I think as a group of our counties around us, we all try to do the same thing so everybody doesn't get confused if they move from one county to the other. Well, it's kind of the same stuff. So, and also election law requires us to do that. We are waiting for our ballots to be sent to us. We don't program our own ballots, but we're on top of getting that done and getting everything sent to our military and overseas on September 19th, which is Saturday. We can't let anybody down. We're making a cot so we can stay overnight. Maybe we could rent a nice room at the Faust or something.
Somebody should deliver pizza, I guess.
Yeah. We're trying the best we can at our polling locations. You mentioned pizza. At our polling locations, we're not allowing any of our workers to bring food as such. You know, they can bring like a lunch or something, but we don't want anything sitting out. Everything needs to have its place and be in order so that we practice the best and safest sanitizing and disinfecting of the polling location. We also have a new polling location for this election, and I'm glad we have it. I guess I could call it our mega center, like Bexar County has one. We now have the Knights of Columbus Hall right down the street from us, and there's plenty of room in there, so it's going to be a nice place to have the voters go, and I think it will be pretty popular. Great parking, everything like that.
So will your site not be early voting? Instead, it'll be the Knights of Columbus?
No, Knights of Columbus is election day.
Oh.
We still are a polling location.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah. Just when election day comes, we become the accumulation station. And so we don't have any voters.
Right. Ada, are there some questions?
Of course. Cynthia, for voters who have already applied for mail-in ballots, what date do you anticipate voters should expect to receive their ballot?
We're still hoping that we will be mailing them out at the end of September. I know that everybody's concerned about their ballots getting to them by mail, but we feel very comfortable with our mail service here in New Braunfels. And we have instigated another thing on getting our ballots out. We will be able to put the postage on them. We will walk them to the post office ourselves, so we know that they're there and they're gone. So, and then once they receive their ballot and they mark their ballot, like Lisa said, our main location, you can bring your ballot if you feel uncomfortable with mailing it, and with your photo ID. Each person has to bring their own ballot. You can't bring your husband's or your friends or anything. Each person has to bring their own ballot with their ID. And every day during early voting, all the mail ballots we receive and all the people that vote in person, there is a list the next day on our website and on the Secretary of State's website to check to see if we received your ballot. So you can kind of watch and see if we received your ballot if you mail it, or even if you walk in, you can check to see that we did receive it, even though you did walk it in, and be more comfortable that your ballot is here.
Good to know.
Cynthia, do you have enough election workers for each precinct to have a polling location open on election day?
I believe we do, but I've been trying to get everybody to get their workers together. I like to have our judges get their own workers, and I gave all the judges all of the applications that I received, so that if they didn't have enough, they could call the people that were on the applications. But right now, I think we're a little short, but I think that by the end of our training, we'll be pretty set to go. But if we don't, people can still give us a call, give us their name, and we can call them and say, come in for training and because we need you.
Can they fill out the application on your website, or it's better to call?
It's better to call, because I was getting so many applications that I had to cut it off because I believe that they also think that everybody that gets an application would probably get to work, and that's not really the case. We can only have so many workers in a polling location because of size and space. And so I did give out everyone that I got up to that point to every judge and alternate judge. So, but give us a call. I've been taking calls, we've been finding people that are really interested in working, and we're putting them at locations just by giving us a call.
Okay.
Cynthia, the same question that I asked Lisa, are there many amendments on this ballot for Comal?
No, we are contracting with only 7 entities, and the only propositions are on with the entities, the cities, and the cities and the water districts that are being proposed. So it's not very bad. It's as far as propositions.
Because New
Not very
Braunfels,
long.
New Braunfels decided not to put in all their charter amendments, didn't
Right.
they?
Right. There are 18 charter amendments. Yes.
But they decided to wait till May.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, that would have made it very long. And I know everybody's going to be kind of confused because there is no straight party. So it's going to take them a little longer than they thought it would to vote.
Okay. Any more, Ada?
No, thank you, Cynthia.
Oh, thank
You're
you
welcome.
very much, Cynthia. Now I'd like to introduce Susan Schultz from LWV Texas. Susan recently rejoined the league to work towards its mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. Wait a minute, let me go find her and make sure we can see her.
I should be right here.
There you are. Yes, thank you. Susan recently rejoined the league to work towards its mission of empowering voters and defending democracy. She is now serving on the state board where she is involved in advocacy, voting rights, and election protection. By profession, Susan is an attorney and mediator. She has worked with governmental entities and nonprofits, promoting effective communication and collaborative decision-making. Susan has lived in Austin for 39 years. We very much appreciate you being with us tonight and glad you didn't have to make the drive from Austin.
Right, right.
Thank you.
So Roxana, I think you have a couple of slides that I had prepared. I know that both Cynthia and Lisa covered some of them, so we can run through them pretty quickly. But one of the tasks that I have with the League of Women Voters of Texas is to focus on voter education. And I know that many of us are very concerned about the upcoming November election, and we want to make sure that the process goes smoothly. And so one of the first things that we do is that we look to, and the League of Women Voters of Texas is part of a coalition which looks at election protection. And so we are with other organizations looking at what some of the concerns were in past elections and seeing how we can help smooth out some of the hiccups or some of the challenges that we saw in past elections. And we always get, questions about voting and the voting process. So that's what my slides are highlight, but I know that Lisa and Cynthia covered some of that, so we can go through them, some of them quickly. So first of all, some of the deadlines. So the next slide looks at just to be aware of where the deadlines are. One of the first things to do, of course, when you're going to vote is to look at whether you're registered. So last day of registration, and then when the early voting periods are, if you're going to vote in person, and then the last day to vote, to apply for vote by mail if you're going to vote by mail. So next slide is, okay, so how do you figure out whether or not you're registered to vote in the county where you now reside? And one of the quickest way to do that is on the Secretary of State's website at votetexas.gov. And I'm not going to read the slides, but here are some of the different scenarios as to whether or not you've moved recently, and also if you don't have a printer, there's a website that you can go to fill out all the information, and they will send you an application with your information filled out. But remember that the deadline to register to vote is October 5th, which is coming up very quickly. So when we're talking about safe voting, and certainly in this time of pandemic, many voters are concerned about, are we going to be safe going to the polling sites? And I know that county election officials are doing everything that they can to make the polling sites safe. As you heard from Cynthia and Lisa, protocols are in place to do that. Poll workers are being trained to make sure that the polling sites are follow the protocols for safety. But if you can, one of the options that you have is to vote by mail. And so next slide, we'll just quickly go over who can vote by mail in Texas. Texas is one of just a few states that doesn't have unqualified vote by mail. You have to be 65 years or older, sick or disabled, out of the country during early voting and election day, in jail, but otherwise eligible to vote. So next slide. There's been a lot of litigation, and you may have read some in the news about the different litigation for vote by mail. Basically, where we are now is that the election code defines disability as a sickness or physical condition that prevents the voter from appearing at the polling place on election day without a likelihood of needing personal assistance or of injuring the voter's health. And that last bit is particularly what's been at the center of some of the controversy about whether injuring the voter's health. And the litigation has been about whether just fearing that you don't have immunity to COVID-19 qualifies you as being disabled and allows you to vote by mail. In the recent May 2020 Supreme Court decision, what they said is just that fear is not enough to qualify you as being disabled. But what the Texas Supreme Court decision did say is that it's essentially up to the voter to decide based on their health history, whether they have a physical condition that would make them likely to put their health in jeopardy by going to the polls. And the determination, according to the Texas Supreme Court decision, is really in the hands of the voter to do that. So if you decide, based on your health history and your health condition, that you meet that qualification, if you meet that definition of disability, then you can apply to vote by mail. Next slide. Timing, and I know that Cynthia and Lisa hit on this a little bit. So under statute, the last day to apply to vote by mail is October 23rd. However, as you've heard in the news, there may be some delay in the Postal Service, but certainly in any case, to apply to vote by mail should be done as soon as possible. You don't want to wait till the last minute to send in your application to vote by mail. Next slide. And then when does it need to be at the county elections office? It needs to be there by election day, at the latest by 7 p.m. on election day. And it can be there by mailing it in through the post office, or you can also use common carrier, or you can also hand deliver it, as Lisa and Cynthia mentioned. And if you do hand deliver it, make sure that you have a photo ID with you when you present your mail-in ballot. Next slide. Okay, so if you're not going to vote by mail and you decide that you're going to vote in person, the league, and a lot of this information is on the League of Women Voters of Texas website, and I know that both the local leagues also have a lot of this information on their website, and that's a great resource to go to. The governor has extended the early voting period, and it starts on October 13th. And so we really recommend that people vote early, not wait until election day. I know, as the county election officials have mentioned, a lot of people have traditions about voting on election day, but especially with potentially longer ballots, the fact that we don't have straight party voting anymore will make it that people will spend more time in the polling sites. So voting early hopefully will minimize the lines and the time that you spend at the polling sites. Next slide, please. And some of the tips that that we have on the website is just to check where your polling locations, the dates and times, and sample ballots, so that you get as much information as possible before you even go to your polling site. The league will have its voters guide available in early October, and that's a great resource to get information. Next slide, please. As you've heard, one of the things that the league is also supports very much is all the work that the county election officials are doing. And we really appreciate all the preparations that they're doing, including recruiting of poll workers. And so we want to support that. And we have on our website ways for people who want to volunteer, how they can sign up. And I will mention here too that the counties are responsible for getting poll workers working at the polling sites. And there are also other nonprofits that are recruiting for poll monitors, which just means that those volunteers will be going around to different polling sites to answer questions that voters may have even before they get into the polling site, and are there as resources to support the voters and answer any questions that they may have. So, and also we'll mention the hotline that we have set up for people to call directly into a hotline in just a few slides. Next slide, please. Here's the hotline. So if you have questions when you get to the voting place, and whether it's about voter registration, whether it's about, you know, I'm not sure whether I'm registered, or I'm not sure whether what they're telling me is accurate, whether I can't vote, then here are all different hotlines that you can access that are in different languages. And those hotlines are being answered by volunteer lawyers that are trained in election and voting rights, and will be able to answer your questions. Next slide, please. One of the things that we've heard, not just in Texas, but also nationwide, is the amount of disinformation and misinformation that might be out there. And so as a voter, you want to be an informed voter. We all want to be informed voters. And here are some of the trusted voting information websites that we have on our website, so that, you know, one of the basic principles is whatever information you get, you want to make sure that it's from a credible source, that we're not spreading disinformation or misinformation, and that we're getting the information that we need in order to make the right decisions. Next slide, please. That's, so I'm happy to answer questions, and also both the local league websites are great resources, as well as the League of Women Voters of Texas is a great resource, and a lot of information that I've just gone over. You don't have to memorize or go back over. It's on the League of Women Voters Texas website. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Susan. The first question I have is, what would you say to voters who might feel that elections are rigged and we can't trust the outcomes on November 3rd?
That is such an important question, because I know even among my friends, they are so concerned about just what this person just asked about, the trustworthiness of the process. And I think as responsible voters, we need to trust. And I know that county election officials are working really hard to make the process secure and safe. And so, you know, one of the most important responsibilities that we have in a democracy is to vote. And as a league, we want to make that an informed decision. So we're putting out information out there, and we need to believe that the process is going to work. And if, you know, in the future, if we have concerns, we just need to address those and make it not so much fear, but also just a challenge, something that we can work for. And certainly during the legislative session 2, upcoming session, we're going to try to make voting even more secure and safe. But in the meantime, we need to work with the process that we have.
Thank you. What changes in election law should the Texas legislature consider in the 2021 session?
That's a very good question also. That's something that we're putting together right now. Excuse me. We're starting to put together a list of priorities. And if that person would like to suggest some priorities, we're more than willing to listen to that. One of the things I think that the league has been working on over the years is, first of all, online voter registration, which is something that a lot of the states have that Texas doesn't have yet, to make it just simpler and more accessible for people to even register to vote. I know that's one of the things that we're going to be pushing hard on.
Ada, unfortunately, I see that Lisa and Cynthia have gone off the call. So there may be some questions that you'll want to take to them.
Okay, do you want to give Susan a shot at the answer, or just I'll get the answers?
I think that, well, so Susan, one of the questions is, are there requirements for curbside voting? Or should we wait and try to get an answer from Cynthia and Lisa?
Probably, because even though there's some, I think, statutory language about curbside voting, I think counties have some discretion about how they implement that. So that would probably be best answered by each of the county election officials.
Susan Lorenz, I see that you asked that question and another one about waiting. Could you type in your email address so that we can get an answer and get back to you in the chat, and then we can find out? Are there any other questions?
I do not have any other questions. No, I do not.
Okay. Well, I want to thank those of you who turned in, dialed in for this session. I think everyone for now could, everyone turn on your video. We have a few moments we could see your faces. What might be nice. I'm sorry that Cynthia, and we should have made it clear that we had asked them to stay till the end, but they certainly are busy people, and let's see, asked to start video. Okay. They certainly are busy people. One of the things that Lisa had said earlier to Ada was that you can't pay someone to care. And I really do believe that Lisa and Cynthia are doing the very best they can, and they really care and want all of us to vote safely and count our votes. And Susan, there's only one league. We cover Comal and Guadalupe counties.
Okay. Great.
So, the voter's guide will be published in the Herald Zeitung and the Seguin Gazette. There's separate ones for each county. That should be by October 10th. It'll be on the league's website. You all should go to Vote 411. We're collecting data, and that should also go live by before October 10th, because we need all the information from Vote 411 to put in the printed voter's guide. We are conducting candidate forums for all of the contested races in Comal and Guadalupe County, and links to those are on our website. Candidates have responded very well. I've only had a few people who I haven't been able to confirm, but if you live in Comal County Precinct 1 or 4, we have those up. And if you live in New Braunfels ISD, districts 2 and 4, they'll be up tomorrow. So we're working hard to get all the information out. Ada, do you want to say something about a volunteer opportunity?
Well, as a matter of fact, on Saturday from 1 to 4 at the Live Oak Baptist Church on Washington Avenue in New Braunfels, we're going to build 8,000 doorknob packages for our effort to get out the vote, to increase the level of voting in 4 precincts, 2 in Comal and 2 in Guadalupe. So we're going to stuff those bags on Saturday. And we do have a space limitation because we're distancing and you must wear a mask. Sorry, but I'm not getting sick. Unless something catastrophic happens, like I've got to give mouth to mouth to an accident victim on the side of the road. But that's about the only reason I'm willing to not wear a mask and be with people who aren't wearing masks. So Saturday from 1 to 4, please let me know if you can come. I have room for 2 more people. So I mean, I need help, but I can only take so much help. On September 23rd through, Jerry, what is it, the 28th? We are going to walk neighborhoods, those 4 precinct neighborhoods, and we're going to hang those bags on the doorknobs. We do not want people to talk or knock. I mean, if somebody's in the yard, they have a question, make sure they distance, but we need a lot of people to get these 8,000 bags out. Not all 8,000 will go to the 4 precincts. We have 4 or 5 food banks that we will be passing out this voter, get out the vote information. And we have it distinct bags for the 2 counties. Okay, I'm out of gas.
Okay, thank you. Well, does anyone have anything else they would like to add or a question that they've thought of? Susan, thank you so much for joining us and giving us good information.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, then I'm going to stop this recording.